Not everything is political and not everything is woke. And that's the problem we're having in the video gaming industry nowadays. We're trying to shoehorn every game into these two subcategories, whether it's a political, progressive, woke, activist type of game, or it's anti-woke and it's doing everything that we don't see in the video gaming industry in the Western world when it comes to beauty standards and overall freedom of speech. But that is just not gaming in general. Gaming is universal and has many subcategories, and that's how it should be. Much in the same way that the Japanese manga industry is, where there's all these subcategories of different types of manga comic books that fit for everyone's taste. And I think that is the situation we're seeing here with Metaphor ReFantazio, which is a game that is coming out from Atlas, the producer and creator of the Persona series, which is one of my favorite series. This is a game I've been looking forward to, but of course, seeing the massive success of it, I was excited to get it. But looking at some of the comments, some of the reactions to this game in different forms, of course, it's not everyone. I think it's a small minority of people saying that this game is woke, this game is progressive, is doing everything that we see usually in the Western gaming industry. And I find that hard to believe, because what we see from Japanese developers is a games development industry that is trying to placate the Western gaming industry, not necessarily follow its lead. And I can understand people's hesitancy to believe that every game is not political nowadays, because if you look at the Western games development sphere, every game is a political statement, and that's what you see from AAA gaming as a whole, a massive political statement to what they want to inject into the fan bases that they want to influence. And of course, we have companies like Sweet Baby Inc. stating this directly to the fan base, saying they want to change the overall game player base and their opinions on political activist movements in society nowadays. You see this with most recent speeches from the CEO of Sweet Baby Inc. saying that is their intention to change the mind and manipulate the gamers to follow their political activist ideas. They're not even gamers. They're not even interested in the audience and the customer base. They're there for their philosophy alone, and to have that philosophy pervasive throughout the gaming industry. And it has been effective because we've seen their philosophy pervasive in the Western games development sphere. So I understand people's paranoia with everything that they're seeing in the gaming industry, because we've seen it everywhere. Sweet Baby Inc. has took over the gaming industry in this way, and that's why people are paranoid about what the games we're going to see, because we know these are companies that are backed by billion-dollar investment banks like BlackRock, like Vanguard, that have this overall perspective that they want to force behaviors onto the gamers. So I understand gamers' hesitancy to any game that may have even an ounce of shade of color in the character design, because whenever we see this stereotypical black female character with the side of her head shaved, we get the same type of game that is steeped in modern day political progressive talking points. That is a boring game that is uninteresting, unengaging, with wholly unlikable characters that are annoying to their core because they're trying to fit this political stereotype that is the ideal form of a person, at least in these activist minds. So that's why I understand the perspective of people when they see some slight darker shades in this game and they think, oh, they're doing something woke, but that is just not the case. This is just a game being what it is first and foremost. And I think that's what Japan does the most. They make games that are diverse and interesting all the time, and I think people miss that understanding of Japanese games because we're clouded by the modern day market, where Japan has always been doing interesting and different things with their games. In the 1990s, they had black main characters in their games, like Barrett from Final Fantasy VII. They did things progressively all throughout the history of video games, and I think we should expect that continuously in the future as well. But now that is being categorized as being something woke now because of this modern day environment, where anything that carries any of the characteristics of these modern day political activists and consultancy groups like Sweet Baby Inc. are going to be associated with these companies. And I think that's the true poison of these consultancy firms like Sweet Baby Inc., because now you have diversity associated with bad product, and that is a terrible situation for anything related to growing diverse perspectives within an industry where everything associated with diversity is absolutely trash. And I think that's what we see with Sweet Baby Inc. Just look at Kill the Justice League, a massive failure with a diverse cast that is just uninteresting and unengaging. The same thing with Dustborn, which is a kind of a clone of the same female protagonist we've been seeing in multiple Sweet Baby Inc. influenced games. The same goes with Concord, where he had similar designs as Dustborn in a shooter game. And you can continue on with Flintlock, which has a prototypical character that is the same as a multitude of other video games, where it's just annoying to see this character prototype everywhere, the black female character with the shaved side head and annoying personality that is aggressively evil. And I think that's the situation we're annoyed by as gamers in the industry. So when we see a hint of a shade, we'll be like, okay, it's going to be the same thing. But that's just not the case. There's developers out there that are just making games as per usual, and I think that's what Atlus is for the most part. And I know they have their own DEI department, their influences in there, but that's mostly Japanese people in there taking up those roles and producing and retranslating American standards. And I think the main thing we have to see here, it's the American influence that is ruining a lot of these video games. The Japanese are just doing what they're doing, and then Americans come in and say, oh, you got to do this and that, you have to add this and that. And I think that's the thing that people are aggressively annoyed by. But I think this game looks good. This looks amazing. It doesn't look woke at all. And I think we have to step back and realize not everything is made for woke standards. This game is probably just doing something on its own, in its own unique way, and it's being accused of things that are just not really associated with the game itself. Even though it's a small minority of people, mostly everyone just loves this game. This game sold over 1 million copies in its first day. It is a highly successful game. I think it has over 60,000 people at its peak. It's matching Persona 3 Reload for 1 million copies. At least that game made it in a week. This made it in a day. So it's just showing the interest in some new fantasy RPG, JRPG games that people are excited about. And Atlus is doing its thing right here, where it's made a successful game that everyone is praising, critics to the fans, and people are playing this game. I'm planning to play this. I think it's going to be a good game, and I'm just interested in seeing the new dynamics of the game. Of course, people are going to say it's the same as the old dynamics, but I just like seeing what Atlus does with their games and the overall new vision they have for this new fantasy game, because they've been making Persona games for so long. It's nice to see them do something different. But back to the main topic, we just got to realize not everything is woke. We got to let games breathe, especially Japanese games. I know they're being influenced by Western development standards nowadays, but I think all in all, Japan is still making their own games for themselves, and they may alter it a little bit at the forceful push of an American system that is trying to push its own political philosophies. But I think overall, Japan is still making quality games, and I think this is probably one of them. I'm going to play it. Hopefully you guys give it a chance. Don't judge everything by its cover. I know everyone's judging this game because it doesn't have romance options, but that's how a lot of JRPG games are. There are no romance options. I think people have just been so heavily focused on these particular aspects of these games that they forgot there's some games that just don't have it. I'm fine with that. And the other issue with this game I know people are complaining about is the fact that it has a focus on these racial diversity issues within that fantastical world. I know everyone's judging the game because it has a protagonist that has like a light brown skin color and it's focused on the racial diversity situation within the society of the game. And I think this is just topics we would have talked about 10-15 years ago without blinking an eye. But nowadays we have a situation where people are easily noticing this now because everyone is always talking about race and how it has to be the focal point of every single industry in society. And when you make something the focal point of every industry in society, you make people highly aware of the differences between people in society. And I think that is the negative effect of consultancy firms overtly focused on the differences between us. And that's why I'm always against the Sweet Baby Inks of the world, because they're making racism more of an issue rather than making it less of an issue. But that's just my personal thoughts on the situation. I like to hear your thoughts on this situation. Metaphor, ReFantazio looks like just a regular good game from Japan, and I'm excited about it. But maybe you differ from me. Maybe you think this is a woke game. You tell me. Like, comment, share, subscribe. This is Wagner Knows Why. Catch you next time.